Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reconstructing Nigeria and Nigerians. Today, I'm going to talk about not just Nigeria, but I'm going to talk about Africa. And the topic is my problem with democracy in Africa. I'm concerned that African nations are easily manipulated and indeed frightened by the West to practice democracy. Whereas they are not forcing democracy on China, they are not forcing democracy on Saudi Arabia, on Iran, but on Africa, they just undo us anyhow they want. And every African leader is afraid to be called that is not democratic. But in our quest to be democratic, we just swallow the kind of democracy that was brought to us as if that is the ideal democracy. But when you look at democracy properly, you will see that with the Electoral College in America, democracy is not ideal, and Americans know about it. That's why they introduced the Electoral College. But when they push democracy on developing world and on Africa, they don't tell us about the adjustments that need to be put in democracy like they did with Electoral College. I believe that the form of democracy we are practicing right now should not be practiced in Africa until there have been adjustments for democracy to suit the demands and the needs of the African nations and African people. The way it is right now is working against, democracy is working against the African interest, especially the point that says that everybody has to do like America, just 2 terms of rule for a leader, mainly 4-year rule. So if you stay there for more than 8 years, they now call you a dictator, and they begin to, put all kind of pressure on you and everything like that. But that is also a hypocrisy, because all the Western countries, most of the Western countries, especially the big so-called democratic countries, they don't abide by that rule or they don't always abide by that rule that you can only be president for 2 terms, and after that another person must come in. If you want to even suggest that a leader in Africa should stay for not more than 2 terms, then you have to let Africans tell you about the problems that we have in Africa. The problem we have in Africa is that our population is not yet developed. 50% of our population are still uneducated. And when we are lucky, so most of our leaders are still power hungry and money monger. So much that when we are lucky to have one person who is a normal leader, we want him to stay for more than 2 terms. We want him to stay. Like in my own case, I was almost, I was so disheartened and I was so heartbroken when we had Obasanjo, and he was doing well. He was bringing the country from the brink of collapse, and the country was restored. And then, everybody, even the citizens themselves, decided to campaign for him to be removed, and the Western world supported him that he cannot go for 3rd term. And a lot of Nigerians are still beating themselves on the chest and bragging that they participated in stopping Obasanjo from going to term. But what did you get as a result? You got a collapse. Now we have returned back to the years before Obasanjo even came, before democracy. So everything is worse now than ever before, just because we are stubborn. We just want to follow blindly the instructions of the West that democracy must be 2 times. But what those people, Africans, don't know is that when it is in the interest of the West, even in America, they have changed their rules and their constitution to accommodate a leader that stayed there for more than 2 terms. France has done the same thing. Germany has done the same thing. England has done the same thing. So why is it that Africans must obey and just blindly follow the injunctions of the Western countries? I see a similar situation right now working out in Rwanda. There is a lot of pressure on the president of Rwanda right now that he should leave office because they are calling him dictator. And Paul Kagame has done what no African leader has done. Even not all Western leaders have been able to do what he has done. But if he has stayed there only for 2 terms, his success would have been aborted. And the same thing that happened to Obasanjo would have happened to that country, to Rwanda. The same thing that happened to Nigeria would have happened to Rwanda. But because he got a visionary leader, which is not always common to come across because of our lack of development right now. So thank God that the guy was stubborn enough to stay. And they are now calling him a dictator. But personally, I would say whenever we are ready, whenever we are lucky, an African country is lucky to find a leader like that, we should let them stay as long as they are productive and moving the country forward. But on the other hand, we cannot just make it to become a blanket statement that every African should stay. We don't want dictators. Yes, we don't. But for example, near Rwanda, there is a nearby country that is called Burundi. And there is another president there that has also stayed for long. In that case, I would have been against, for example. I think that, yes, that Pierre Nkurunziza is a dictator. But in the case of Kagame, I would have let him stay because we are seeing the result of the progress for the country. He's moving the country forward. So that is what I think should have been the specifics in Africa. That if everybody sees that this country is doing what they have never done before, the record shows that, this guy is a worthy leader, I think we should be willing to change the constitution when necessary. But the ones that are changing the constitution and are staying back right now, they are not doing anything for the country, for their countries. But America is supporting them when it is in their interest. And but also we should know that staying for more than 2 terms is not just an African phenomenon. America has done the same thing before. If you are a student of history, you will discover that there was a president in America that is called Franklin Roosevelt. That Franklin Roosevelt stayed in government and in power for 3 terms. And he was actually ready to stay for the 4th term. He was actually elected to stay there for the 4th term. The only reason why he didn't serve for the 4th term was that he died in office before, in the beginning of that 4th term, after he was already elected. So, and the reason is very simple, because America was going through World War II. America was going through repression, the economic recession. So they know that tough times call for tough measures. So they allow him to be there. But today, though African countries are going through tough measures too, but once we begin to say we want to stay there for more than 1 term, then it becomes a problem that you are not a democracy, you are no more democratic. But we should look at the countries of the world. Everybody has done the same thing. Like Kagame, I think that he should stay and keep on leading that country to success. Because look at it, Great Britain has done the same thing, not just Roosevelt in America, even in England. There is a prime minister in England that stayed there for 20 years. His name was Sir Robert Walpole. He stayed there for 20 years. There was, and in England even, there is no limit to the amount of times the prime minister can be there. So but if Africa tried to introduce that in their constitution, that they could keep on being voted in, they would say they are dictators. But Margaret Thatcher was able to be there for 11 years. Even Tony Blair was there for 10 years. But our own time, once they stay 4 years, 2 terms, they boot them out, and then there is pressure from the same America, Britain, and everything like that, and all other countries like that. So can you imagine that a British prime minister had stayed there for 20 years before? There is no Nigerian leader that has done that. And if you try to do something like that, they will begin to attack you and say that you are a dictator. But, but not just Britain has done that, even France has done that. France leaders have been there for more than 10 years. And they are not being called dictators. And some of them, and they are the same France that will begin to call other people to that they are the dictators. If you remember, Francois Mitterrand was there for 14 years. And even Charles de Gaulle was there for over a decade. Even Germany has prime minister, chancellors who has been there for more than 10 years. I think Helmut Kohl ruled for 16 years. Konrad Adenauer ruled for 14 years. So these countries have been, they are the top Western countries, and they have not followed all they didn't copy democracy blindly by just being there for 4 years, 2 times 4 years. No, as long as they are bringing the country to progress, we have to have some allowance for that in Africa. Look at Spain, for example. I mean, look at Spain. The situation was even unbelievable because their president, Francisco Franco, was a complete dictator. He was there for 39 years. 39 years. Just like the president of or prime minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, he was there for over 30 years. And that is the only reason why those countries were able to come out of economic depression and out of backwardness. For whenever we are lucky in Africa to have a good leader like Mandela, we should keep them in office until they are ready to go. You know, even this next prime minister they had in Spain also stayed for, apart from the one that stayed for 39 years, the other one stayed for 14 years. Felipe Gonzalez stayed for 14 years. Then let's go to China. These are the leading countries in the world. Up to now, even the current prime minister of China is staying there for longer than their constitution required. They had to change the constitution. Russia, the people who are leading their country forward, they cannot. 2 times is too small for them, especially if they are good. But if they are bad, we have to vote them out, and that's why we have to have a constitution, and we have to have, a way of regulating this. And but in China, look at Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong stayed there for 27 years and was able to bring the country out. Then Kepen, I think it's Kepen, he stayed there for 11 years. And the one that is there now is going to stay there for as long as possible. Even Hong Kong, they have a leader that has been there for almost 30 years. Same thing, like I said, with Lee Kuan Yew. So these countries have been tolerated. But when an African tries to, retain their good leaders, then they want to turn it to a fight and, all kinds of things. And then our ignorant Africans are the ones who begin to make so much noise. Like in the case of Obasanjo, I believe that if Obasanjo had remained there, Nigeria wouldn't have been the way it is right now. But unfortunately, we just want to copy democracy the way it is in the West, blindly, without putting our own exception to it, just like America did. America came up with the Electoral College as the exception to their democracy. So it's not just through popular vote you win election in America. No, you can get popular vote and still not win election. Just like with Hillary Clinton, she won popular vote, but she lost, she didn't become president. So Donald Trump became, even though he lost the election in popular vote. Same thing with other, George Bush Jr. He also lost the election but became the president because they have their exceptions to the rule through Electoral College. And we need to do the same thing in Africa before democracy could work for us. Otherwise, democracy is going to keep on giving us trouble, just like it is doing right now. For the love of God, church and nation.